Yo, what's going on? It's your main man, Rick the Dawn. Hey, what's going on, y'all? So I finally watched episode 6 of Last Chance U basketball, and again, the producers are killing it with this season. I mean, such a very moving documentary. And I think even if you don't like basketball, there's a lot to gather and enjoy about this series. But anyway, before we get started, this episode is brought to you by the Really Hood Podcast. We just dropped episode 38. It is doing really well. I do appreciate everybody who checked it out. Also, it is brought to you by brokenheartshirts.com. That is a place where you can get these really cool hoodies. But let's keep it moving. Now, this episode starts with a massive blowout. Man, well, it was kind of cool to see because when you're in a basketball season, at some point things click. And in a season that I coached, there were only about 10 games. So it's like if you lose one game, it's like you lost 10 games. And it was a very quick season. But this episode, I find out that ELAC is 23-4 by the end of the episode, which tells me they have a lot of time to galvanize a record, a lot of time to figure out the kinks. However, that being said, they still can't lose a lot because it's such a competitive conference. But nevertheless, I just got really good vibes from this season. I got to see the coach and the players connecting on another level. People don't really understand unless you've been in that atmosphere. And one of the main reasons why I bring up my own personal experience is because it just helps people understand that I understand what I'm talking about. It takes, when you're on a basketball team or any team, whether it be rugby, baseball, football, it's such a brotherhood and a sisterhood that formulates that you just got to be there to understand. But this episode showed a lot of that, and I want to point out a few things. First off, they absolutely demolished the team that they played at the start of this episode, and I know why. It was because they saw a all-time coach in Coach Balmer, and also Coach Ty Lue showed up. And to me, that was evidence that this team is starting to make waves in their local area, because people are celebrities, if you want to call them that, they're coaches really, but celebrity coaches are starting to show interest in their program. And I'll be honest with you, when this first came out, I was very nervous. When I saw Coach Ty Lue and I saw Coach Mosley talking to Coach Ty Lue, Coach Balmer, I was thinking to myself, this is going to probably be bad. One of the worst things that can happen on a basketball team is, giving them the impression that they've made it before they made it. And I thought to myself, this might actually backfire. So Coach Mosley talks to Ty Lue and said, hey, I got to go, but I'm so honored. And he goes to his locker room and he talks to his team and lets them know, like, hey, Coach Ty Lue is here, Coach Balmer is here, and we got to show up, we got to do our thing. I initially thought when that happened, I felt like the players might get nervous and they might not show up, and that they might do the wrong things on the court because they're trying to impress the coaches. But boy, I've never been so wrong about something ever because these guys, and it showed that this team is well coached. All right. And it showed me that Coach Mosley has really done his work with the squad. And that these guys, here's the pivotal word. These guys have bought into Coach Mosley's system and programs and philosophies. If you're going to coach any group of people, you're as the leader or as the teacher, as the coach, you're trying to get these group of individuals to buy into a philosophy. Even if we're talking business, if you are the boss of employees, whatever, what have you, the principal of students, I don't care what it is, the parent of kids, the whole intent or the goal is to have them buy into a philosophy. What is your philosophy? Do you believe that doing good pays off? Do you believe that get it by any means? You're trying to get these people or these individuals to buy into that system. And I thought Coach Lue and Coach Balmer being at the game would distract them. Boy, was I wrong, because they absolutely destroy the other team. So much so that I don't even remember their name. They were I want to say burgundy and yellow jerseys, kind of like the Cavaliers of the NBA. And it was just a dogfight for them, not for Eli. I think the score at the end of the first half was like 49-4. Like, they absolutely demolished this team. And towards the end of the game, it ended up being triple digits on ELAC's side to double digits on, I forget the name of the team. Okay, I do apologize. But I want to say it was like 139 to like 43 or some crazy number like that. And after the game, Coach Ty Lue, which I thought was really cool, he came back to the locker room and talked to the guys and, just gave them some words of wisdom, just saying, hey, look, guys, it's not about you right now. At this level, you're doing it for your family, right? So that was kind of cool to see Coach do that. He even brought up the whole Iverson step over, which I thought was a good fun because you would think that Coach Ty Lue would be tight about that, but you can tell that he's had a lot of years to deal with that situation. So now he's at peace with it. He's like, yo, I got stepped over, but I got all these rings. You know what I mean? So I could tell he's definitely grown from that AI situation. And you know, after that, we get to the question of my reaction, which is why are collegiate athletes not getting paid? Because we fast forward to Brian Penn, and if you don't know who these guys are, you got to know who they are, right? But if you don't know, we get to Brian Penn Johnson, and this episode did a wonderful job in detailing his backstory. Apparently, he grew up in poverty. He wasn't, very wealthy. His family wasn't very wealthy. They bounced from house to house. At one point, they were living in multiple homeless shelters, right? All that type of stuff happened. He talked about sleeping with his legs up, current day, because as a youth, he had to sleep with his legs on top of his possessions just in case someone tried to steal it. So, these type of things came up and it made me feel guilty because in one of my reactions, I forget which one it is. You can go check it out. If you don't know how to find these episodes about Last Chance, you go to my channel, go to my playlist. But in one of my episode reactions, I talked about Brian Penn Johnson in a negative light, and I thought he deserved it in that episode. But it made me realize something that these guys are not basketball players. These guys are human beings, and they are just skilled at basketball. And a lot of times as consumers or viewers, we're only thinking about ourselves and wanting to be entertained. And we forget that these individuals are people, right? And, they have issues and fluctuating emotions. And a lot of times those emotions come from deep seated traumas. We talk about Brian here. Brian apparently grew up without his father. This episode showed us that, or at least told us that his father is in New York. So that is a big problem. This is an issue that plagues a lot of African American. I'm gonna just say Black American. I'm sorry. It plagues a lot of Black American households where the father is not present. You don't think that's going to have a negative effect? I do, because he doesn't have a male role model to look up to. And this is why even in my daily life, I spend as much time with my son as possible, and I try to ingrain him with my philosophies and the things I want him to do as a man. Even though he's only a baby, he's only like 4 years old, I still talk with him and deal with him as if he's 24, 34, 54, because I just want him to know, like, hey, I'm here, I got you, and you don't have to figure this thing out by yourself. Because unfortunately for Brian, it appears that he had to figure it out by himself, and that's just not fair to any child, right? But I criticized him because of some of the emotional eruptions that I was seeing on screen. And I realized this episode that a lot of that stemmed from a lot of different things and traumas. And it was a little unfair, though I say he earned that criticism by me. But I still feel like, as or in general, when we see these people, Black Americans, white Americans, and we're criticizing them, Latino Americans, Asians in general, or just people. When we see people at their lowest light, it's so easy for us to criticize them because we don't know their backstory. But this episode made Brian human, and what I mean by that is it told us more about Brian, so that I was able to understand him. And when you understand a person, I believe that is when you can empathize. And I think that is a big issue with the world today. A lot of people point the finger. And I'm not going to just say that this group of people are the only people that get finger pointed at, but I'll say Black Americans, especially Black American boys. It's always like you're a thug, you're a gangster, but you don't know what they've been through. You don't know their trauma. And if you knew that, if you saw that, if you heard that, perhaps you would better understand why they wear their pants a certain way, why they join gangs and things of that nature. So, this episode, in my opinion, made Brian a human being, and it helped me understand. But getting back to the overarching point, which is why are college athletes not paid? First off, this episode did a wonderful job in showing the pain and the agony that these players are going through. I'm just gonna take a break from Last Chance U and just have a open conversation about how wrong this system is. Okay, this system is corrupt. It can't be described as anything else. NCAA, JUCO, I don't care what the organization is. Anytime you have employees working for you, generating cash flow for you, but they're not getting paid, that is slavery or indentured, what is it called? Indentured servitude, right? These players are being treated as slaves. Now, the NCAA or collegiate basketball organizations, they try to frame it this way. Well, we're giving them an opportunity. You know, they could possibly go to the NBA or the and whatever, the NFL, or they'll frame it this way. We're giving them scholarships. But here's the loophole. Not every player goes to play professionally at the highest level. Not every player is going to school playing sports off of a scholarship. So therefore, there still remains a problem. These players deserve a stipend. And I don't know why that hasn't happened. Let me tell you something. Within the next 100 years, college players will receive either a salary or a stipend. And then once that happens, the people of the future will look back at 2023 and say, how did they go so long without getting paid? It's kind of like the 3-point line. We have the 3-point line now. And then, you know, you look back at those older games when it didn't have a 3-point line, you just like, how did they play this game without that? And I think this will be a very similar phenomenon. Once college players are paid, whether it be a stipend or a salary, once that happens, they're going to look back at our generation and they're going to say, "Oh, I got something like, I'm trying to talk through it, but it's like so uncomfortable." They're going to look back at our generation and say, how did they go so long without getting paid? And I'll tell you why. Because for whatever reason, and I don't want to be judgmental, but the only way to describe this or to explain this is collegiate organizations are greedy. They're only thinking about themselves. There's what other way can you explain that? Because you have guys busting their behinds, injuries, all type of emotional investments, and they're not getting compensated. While at the same time, they're generating cash flow for the colleges and the overarching organizations. What do you call that? That's slavery. That's slavery. Right now, when people watch college sports, they're watching slaves for entertainment. Now, go ahead. Try to explain away what I just said. Try to make it sound okay. But I'm telling you what it is because it's common sense. Anytime you're working for free, you're a slave. And what makes it even sadder is that for those players who don't have scholarships, for those players who don't go on to play professionally, they're not one of the chosen few. They're actually paying to work for free because they have to pay their tuition. You know, maybe they're red shirted, or maybe they were just, you know, assigned to the team without a scholarship. Okay, that means they're paying tuition and they're still generating income for the league, collegiate league rather, the school. So they're paying to work for free. There's something wrong with that. Now, what brought these ideas to my mind was seeing Brian Penn Johnson on the stretching table and pulling his knees back and hearing them crack. And then seeing him in extreme discomfort as he's trying to prep for a game. He's playing through pain, playing through aching, issues, problems. He's playing through it. And it said to me in my spirit, these guys are exerting extreme measures of sacrifice with no compensation. And I just think that's very unfair. We saw another moment in this episode where you had, I want to say, Damani. Damani was in a situation where, you know, he was playing His father texted him because his father was in some type of tornado situation, and he texted Damani the insurance information in the event something happened to him. And Damani broke down, went to the sideline, was crying, and it was very difficult to watch. I'll tell you that, because you saw that you have a young man who is, giving it his all. He even had a broken nose. Somebody elbowed him and broke his nose. So you got broken nose. You have being away from your family, things like that. No compensation. Why is that? They don't respect their players enough to even give them $1. And that's not an exaggeration. That's a real factual point. The NCAA doesn't respect their own players enough to give them $1. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. They don't respect their players enough to give them a penny. You hear me? Okay? Because if there's no scholarship, and trust me, there's a lot of players playing without a scholarship. Trust me, there's a lot of players who won't make it to the NBA, NFL, NCAA, the MLB, what have you. It's a lot of players who won't make it to these professional leagues, the NHL, what have you. But they're certainly paying out of pocket or financial aid or loans. That is extremely unfair. It's a real simple fix, by the way. They're making so much money. I'm talking about the NCAA. They're making so much money that it would barely dent their pockets to give each player a $5,000 stipend every semester. So in total, every player would receive about $20,000 for every season. Long story short, why is that not a thing? And I wish that they were not exploiting a group of men and women who really, really needed the opportunity, because I would tell these young men and women to just quit. You know what? Since they're not going to compensate you, quit, all of you, because there's power in numbers. There's power in numerical organization. If everyone quit at the same time, or at least stood their ground at the same time, that would force the hand of the NCAA. Because with the NCAA or any collegiate school or any college, any collegiate organization, what they don't understand is if those players stop, the money stops. You see? If the players have the courage to stand their ground and just for a moment in history be the generation that created change, if they had that courage, if they had a stable ground in order to even take that stand, then they could change the world forever for future collegiate athletes. But they can't do it. You want to know why? Because they have situations like Brian Penn Johnson where they were homeless. They have situations like Damani where he can't be with his family. They got these very young and impressionable young men like Shamar who, they only got one more chance left. So, and for all intents and purposes, these collegiate organizations are exploiting these young athletes for gain, right? It's not hard to figure this out. I like political correctness, but sometimes it's very clear. You have a group of men getting injured, losing sleep, losing family time, all these different things they're losing, and they're playing on a basketball court for an opportunity which is not guaranteed, and they're not getting any compensation. Now, this is how you know that the people running these collegiate organizations are evil. This is how you know that. Okay, I don't care if they're fathers. I don't care if they're Christians. I don't care if they're Muslims. I don't care if they're nice people. I don't care if they're philanthropists. Anytime you see young men and women sacrificing their very bodies for your financial gain, and you don't feel something in the pit of your heart saying they need to be compensated. If you don't feel that, you're not human. These people are working for free. They're getting hurt for free. They're getting injured for free. They're having emotional outbreaks for free while you collect a check. Something's wrong with that. And I know what they're going to say. They're going to say, "Hey, I'm only one person. I don't like the system. If I could, I would." You can. You want to know how? Get on the phone. Collaborate with your other coaches. Hey, let's change things, man. These guys, especially the coaches, they see it more than anybody. They see these sacrifices more than anybody. Hey, guys, let's create a collective. if about 50 schools, 50 coaches, 50 players, I don't know, if we all stop and shut it down, this will get movement. It doesn't take a lot of people. It doesn't take a lot of people. I guarantee you, if 50 colleges, just 50 colleges say, hey, we're not going to play this season. We're going to sit out the season. And the bigger the college, the better. We're not going to play this season because our young guys, our young ladies are being exploited. They're not getting any compensation. I guarantee you the NCAA would have to move their feet. But I didn't want to spend the entire episode on that, but it's just hard not to because it's such an injustice. And you're looking at these young players sacrifice so much, and nothing that they receive is guaranteed, or nothing they can receive is guaranteed. Now, another very, very dominant storyline in this episode was Josh. And we're going to move to the final game of this episode against the Mounties. All right, the Mounties were in a very dire situation where they had to win the game, and they risked being, I want to say, eliminated. Like if they didn't win, there was going to be some problems. Now, ELAC, according to this episode's storyline, they were in number 9, the ninth slot in their conference, and losing this game could have had catastrophic ramifications. And the Mounties also were in a situation. Not winning could have certainly just decimated their season. If I'm not mistaken, it was a win or go home type of situation for the Mounties. And Coach Mosley pointed out several times that, yo, you guys have to show up because these guys are desperate. They're going to play desperate. And it was a very tough fight. I wasn't sure if the Netflix editors were trying to give us, as the viewer, the impression that this was a tough game, or was it really a tough game? I couldn't figure it out because ELAC never lagged or never trailed in this game. They were up the entire game, but some of the the inter battles, the battles in the middle of the game, were very intense. But one player who certainly showed me something that I was so surprised by was Josh Phillips. All right. As you know, Josh has autism. And a lot of times with autistic people, they can go through sensory overload. When there's a lot going on, when a lot of pressure is being applied, they can act out of character. And I thought Josh might have been over exaggerating when he said he had autism. I'm like, oh, you have autism, but I can't tell. But this episode absolutely showed Josh's shortcomings when it comes to his battle with autism. He was very frustrated from the opening jump, from the tip, the jump ball. He was very disoriented, and several times I'm looking at the screen. I'm like, Josh, do you not understand the gravity of this game? Do you not understand how important this game is? Snap out of it. But how unfair was it of me to expect him to do something that is just not possible? I even think that Coach Rob might have said it, like he can't get out of his own way. He can't. Like it's not even a way he can do it, even if he wanted to do it, because this game was one of those bar fights. We all, if you play basketball, even a day in your life, you know what a bar fight game is. It's like the score is secondary to the battle that's taking place on the floor. You're getting those elbows to the ribs. You're getting those knees to the thighs that the referees are not necessarily seeing. This was that type of game, and they several times, the Mounties I'm speaking about, on several occasions they tried to get ELAC to act out of character by saying certain things and committing certain fouls. And I really want to give ELAC a little credit here because they did a wonderful job in staying focused. Now, I didn't see the blowout that we saw at the beginning of the episode. What was it, 139 to 42, some crazy number like that. It wasn't that big of a blowout, but at some point, Josh removes himself from the game. He goes into the locker room for the second time, and he's like punching walls and stuff like that. And boy, oh boy, Brian Penn Johnson comes into the game, and he absolutely changes the entire atmosphere of the game. Now, I didn't say this, but I believe Brian Penn at one point in that first game we talked about at the beginning of the episode had 22 plus points. And that was one of his biggest games, if I'm not mistaken. Like 22 plus points in a collegiate game is very impressive. And, I didn't say this either, but Brian Penn Johnson at one point, once Ty Lue had finished his little monologue, Brian Penn Johnson threw out there like, hey, coach, can I get a contract? And I'm going to tell you right now, There's a lot of coaches, whether it be the collegiate level or the NBA level, it's a lot of coaches looking at Brian Penn Johnson. Let me tell you, because he's so impressive to look at in terms of his physique. He reminds me, and I've said this before, he reminds me of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, like through and through. And I felt like if he can control his anger, he would be a great specimen. Now, the problem at the beginning of the season was he hadn't really found his rhythm. So he was missing a lot of shots, missing a lot of rebounds. Like, you're 7 feet, bro. You can't miss that. You can't. But he was. And then on top of missing all these open money shots, he was having these temper tantrums. So to me, that's where the criticism came from. It's like, this guy. But he's finally found his groove. He's helped his team get to 23-4. And in my opinion, he is a great specimen if he stays in this mental mindset. And I think a lot of the credit goes to Coach Mosley, because Coach Mosley has pushed and prodded Brian Penn Johnson to what he appears to be in this episode. Brian Penn Johnson comes into the game against the Mounties and absolutely destroys the game. And he makes it lopsided. And at that particular point, they flash the score on the screen, and you can see his effect on the game. So shout out to Brian Penn Johnson. All right, I was really, really impressed. And I also like the way that Brian Penn Johnson, after the game, after the win for ELAC, and I believe at that particular point they went to 24-4. But after the win, Brian Penn Johnson embraces Josh in a way that I did not expect. We saw a lot of negative moments from Brian throughout the season, but this episode showed a lot of the positives. And I can only go off of what the editors show, and they show so much positivity that it was very, very difficult for me to have any problem with what I'm seeing. But he embraces Josh, and Josh at the end of the game appears to be like, very remorseful for almost like blowing the game for the team. And Brian wraps him with the greatest embrace that you can give a brother. And he lets him know, listen, we've all had our moment, that type of deal. And it was just a beautiful thing to see. And I would also, as my final point, say shout out to Coach Mosley and Coach Rob and all his other coaching staff for getting the team out of the building without any issue. Because the Mounties, once they lost, like I said, they were already chirping in the middle of the game. But at the end of the game, once they already realized they lost, and they probably just lost their entire season, like, why not fight? You know what I mean? Like, let's fight. We don't got nothing else to lose, right? But Coach Mosley did an amazing job with centering his guys, saying, hey, we're here for a singular purpose. Let's get up out of here. We've already accomplished that purpose. Now it's time to go. I really, really appreciated seeing that, because when you're dealing with a bunch of guys, especially younger guys, it's so difficult to get them on a singular accord mentally. And he did that very, very professionally. It would not surprise me, following this episode, if there's any D1 colleges, any NBA teams or G League teams watching this series, it would not surprise me if they pulled Coach Mosley out of ELAC, because this was the type of episode where you saw his effect. He's laughing with his guys. He's cracking jokes with his guys. This is the type of coach that changes your perspective of life. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why Coach Mosley is so important, so impactful. It's because of what he believes in. It's his philosophies. All right, he believes in Jesus Christ. And when you believe in Jesus Christ, it's so, so impactful. Like, I'm just telling you, it's not me trying to sell anything, but this coach is impactful for a reason. And it's because of what's inside of him that he's sharing with his guys. Now, these guys, they come from all different walks of life. They don't believe in Jesus. They don't even know. But at the same time, they're feeling the impact of Jesus through Coach Mosley. And that's one of the most pivotal things that you can do as a person. It is to share the positivity flowing through your veins with other individuals. That's probably the most important type of relationship you can have with anybody, is to share your positivity with other people. And whether they end up following your philosophies and your belief systems afterwards, that's the secondary point. The primary point is you showed it to them. You see what I'm saying? So I really, really enjoyed watching Coach Mosley interact with his team. And I love the fact that the producers, they showed via other episodes where all of that comes from, right? But that was my take on this episode. I thought it was a really good episode. And I'll tell you, all right, this is a real final point. I said it already, but I'll say it again. what scared me this entire episode. The entire episode, I'm just watching like something bad is going to happen. Like this episode, more than other ones, made me just so uncomfortable because I'm like, it's been going so well. They're 24-4. Everybody's healthy. Like nobody twisted the ankle. Nobody cracked nothing. Nobody got a negative, like a positive COVID test. I'm just like, like I don't want anything bad to happen, but it did not. But it makes me worried because we only have 2 more episodes left. And if they don't make it and win that state championship, it's like, what happened? You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know, man. I'm just enjoying the series. And I got another. I'm gonna probably watch episode 7 soon because I'm right in the groove of things. There's only 2 more left. But if you enjoyed this, you know what you got to do. Go ahead and like it, man. And ladies, whoever's watching, and also subscribe for more content like this. And I certainly appreciate you being here. And I'll holler at you. Peace.